let's get started and read some witchy books. Hello, hello. It is early Monday morning. I am Brittany from Brittany Loves Reading, and this week is the start of the Wacky Witches Readathon, which is hosted by Pris Peruses, and I love witchy books, so I absolutely had to participate in this. I have just picked 3 witchy books that I have been really wanting to read, and I'm going to insert them into prompts somehow as I read them. I don't know what prompts they're going to be for at this moment in time, but I am going to tell you which books I have on my TBR for this week and also which one I'm going to start with. Today is the Thanksgiving holiday here in Canada, so I have a very free day. So I am sprinting later with Kelsey on my channel. Kelsey is my Bookstagram BFF, and I'm very excited to be sprinting with her. So I need to pick one of these books to do sprints today with too. So here's my TBR. I'm going to be doing The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I have been dying to read this since last year when everyone was talking about it. So I'm very excited to be reading this. I'm also going to be reading The Witch Haven by Sasha Payton Smith. I love this rose gold cover. I actually got this for Christmas last year, so it would be good to get it in and finish off all the books that I ended up getting for Christmas. This is the last book that I got for Christmas that I haven't read yet, so go me. I'm actually reading the books that I'm bringing in, so that's exciting. The last book I am going to be reading is The X Hex by Erin Sterling. This is definitely the smallest book on this TBR, and I think it's the one I'm going to start with as well, just because, yes, I do sprints today, but I also have a lot of editing to do. So I think I'm going to start with this. Plus, I've been reading a lot of thrillers and kind of spooky books the last couple of weeks with other Halloween vlogs. So a little light romance kind of sounds really nice right about now, just to have something light and fluffy, which I believe this is because it is a rom-com. So 9 years, Vivian Jones was brokenhearted. She had just broken up with her ex, and she has decided to hex him, but she doesn't really believe anything's going to come of this. 9 years later, she finds out she actually did hex him. He has been hexed this entire time. So that is pretty much all that I know about this. It's had mixed reviews, but I'm okay with that. I really don't know anything about this book other than it's witchy and it's a rom-com and she hexes her ex. I know the second book just came out, so I'm excited to read this. It was really popular last year on BookTube, last October. So I'm excited to finally get around to reading it. I'm going to start with this one. Okay, this was a super quick read, The X Hex. I finished this very, very quickly. It did not take very long. It was cute. I did enjoy it. I'm going to give it 3 stars. Not that there was anything wrong with it at all. I didn't dislike anything. It was an enjoyable read. The antics in this book really reminded me, and the setting as well, of Halloween Town, if you've ever seen that Disney movie. It really reminded me of that. Obviously, this would be an adult version because it is definitely adult. It is definitely an adult romance. There is some smutty scenes in here. Really only one. But I would not call this a smutty book, but it's definitely adult. That being said, I did not really care that much about the love interests in this book. And I think that's why I can only give it 3 stars. I didn't dislike anything about it, but I wasn't overly invested either. Aoife and Michelle always say it was a book and I read it. Sometimes when they're trying to describe their feelings about a book, and I feel like that hits the nail on the head with this one. There's nothing that I can say was amazing about it. There's nothing that I can say that was bad about it. It was a book and I read it. I enjoyed it as I read it, but I think I'm going to forget it kind of quickly. It just wasn't memorable for me. So that's kind of my thoughts. So that's going to be a 3-star read, but I like I said, I didn't dislike it and I didn't love it. It was just a book and I read it. That's the X Hex. I don't have anything else really to say about it because, like I said, I just don't really, I didn't dislike it, but I didn't love it. I'm right middle of the road for me. So that's all I'm going to say on that. The next witchy book that I'm going to be doing for Wacky Witches is The Witch Haven by Sasha Payne Smith. I'm very excited to read this. This has been on my TBR since it basically came out. And then I got it for Christmas last year. And I'm so thankful for it. And I would like to get to it before Christmas rolls around again because it has been sitting on my shelf since Christmas. So it's been there a while. It has this beautiful gold, rose gold foiling on the front, which I love. And I have to show you the naked hardcover because it's beautiful. Look at it, it's so pretty. This book is set in 1911 in New York City. It follows Frances, who is a seamstress, and she is mourning the loss of her brother due to a mysterious death. Something happens and two nurses come and see Frances and offer to bring her to a sanitarium called Haven. And when she gets there, she finds out it is not actually a sanitarium at all, but it is a school for witches. The tagline on the top is "Well-behaved witches never make history," and I think that just sounds interesting. The second book in this series just recently came out, so I'm excited to read the first one and see if I want to continue with the series. I have high hopes that, like I said, this one has been on my TBR for pretty much since it came out, and I've been really excited to read it since it came out, but I've been holding it for spooky season, as you do with your spooky books. So I'm excited to read this and see if I love it as much as I think I'm going to love it. Okay, I have just finished The Witch Haven, and I will say this was a little bit of a struggle. It took me way longer than it should have, just because this wasn't what I was expecting, and not necessarily in a good way. It wasn't a bad book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I just think it's marketed poorly. So it's marketed as she is going to this magical school, and that's what I was expecting, was kind of, you know, what you expect when there's a magical school involved. That's not what this is. So this is set in 1911, and it starts off really good. Frances is working as a seamstress. She is attacked by her employer, and all of a sudden it awakens her magic, and basically her scissors go flying across the room and kill her attacker. And that's how she finds out she is a witch. She gets taken to Haven Academy and to learn how to be a witch. However, it is 1911, so what this school considers learning to be a witch is how to use magic to basically do housework, which is where the book started to lose me a little bit. And I understood that it is historical, and women didn't even have the right to vote at the time, so they were basically just doing housework. But I feel like in a magical school that's hidden behind magic and no one knows is there, we could have utilized the magic better than like learning to sew. That went on for like 100 pages, and I did consider DNFing, but then it did start to get a little bit more interesting. We find out that her brother has been murdered, and she wants to sneak off the school property to use magic to find out who killed her brother. Basically, that's the synopsis, which is much better than the synopsis, I think, inside the book, because it doesn't really tell you any of this, and you think you're getting into like this whimsical magical school, and that's just not what you get from this book. It's more of a feminist murder mystery with a magical element, but the magical element is not as much a part of this book as you would think, considering it's called The Witch Haven. So that is why I ended up giving it 3 stars. There were definitely times where I was kind of bored, and I did find the book dragged for a while, but I did enjoy the murder mystery part of this book and kind of finding out who murdered her brother and what the plot of this was. There's also a men's witch kind of, not school, club, and we see how there's kind of like a rivalry between the witch school and the male equivalent, the all-girl witch school and the male equivalent, and that was somewhat interesting as well. So that's my thoughts on The Witch Haven. I think it's more that it just was not what I was expecting, and I don't think it was marketed necessarily in the best way. I looked at Goodreads after I finished, and a lot of people were thinking the same thing that I was, that it just wasn't what they went in expecting. So I feel like it was just kind of mismarketed a little bit, which is maybe the main problem for the book and why it only got 3 stars for me, was it just wasn't what I was expecting it to be at all. The last book for this vlog I am so excited about because I'm really hoping for something higher than a 3-star. So far, both of the books that I've read have been 3 stars. This one I have high hopes for, and it is The Nature of Witches by Rachel Griffin. I have heard amazing things about this book. I'm not going to hold it up because it's very shiny because it is a library copy. I don't own this one, but I think I might end up getting a copy if I do like it, and I am anticipating to like it because I have heard so many people give this 5 stars that I know. This follows Clara, and in this world that we live in, there is global warming, there's climate change, and witches are able to control the climate. And each witch has a power that they can use during one season. So there's summer witches, winter witches, autumn witches, and spring witches. But Clara is very gifted and has the ability to affect all 4 seasons. And with climate change being what it is and the world falling apart with climate change, Clara has to help save basically the world with the climate. So that is what The Nature of Witches is basically about, and I'm very excited to read this. I've heard so many good things, and I'm just going to dive right in. It's not very big. I think it's only like a 9-hour audiobook at normal speed, so it's not going to take me very long. So I'm excited to dive in. Hi everyone, it is late in the evening. I have been reading The Nature of Witches pretty much all day. I loved this book. The atmosphere in this book was top tier. The descriptions that Rachel Griffin gives of the seasons is just amazing. That was probably my favorite part of this book. It reminded me a lot of Winterwood by Shea Earnshaw, which was one of my best books of the year last year, and it had a really similar vibe to me. Not so much that the stories were the same, because they weren't, but the vibes were really, really similar. So again, this follows Clara. Now that I've read the book, I know a little bit more about her story. She is an Everwitch, which makes her able to have all seasons of power, where every other witch only has 1 season where they have power. She is a very powerful witch. However, her magic does target the people she loves, and she's killed her parents, killed her friend, and she's trying to navigate whether that's a big enough risk to the people around her. Is her power worth all the risk? And that's all I want to tell you, because I don't want to spoil anything, but the story is not super complex. That's not why I liked the book. It was just beautifully written. It was interesting. This is definitely my favorite witch book from this vlog by far. I loved this book. I know that Rachel Griffin has another book, that Wild is the Witch, that came out this year. I will definitely be picking that up soon because I loved this book so very much. I thought the concept was really interesting. Like I said, I liked the writing style a lot. It kept my attention. I just can't say enough good things about it. So I am going to give it 5 stars if I haven't said that already. I loved this book. It's definitely my favorite witchy book that I think I've read all year. I'm pretty happy with it. So that is the end of Wacky Witches Readathon. I'm actually ending it 1 day late on Monday night, but that's okay. It was kind of a more miss than hit, but I'm glad that we're ending on a high note with The Nature of Witches. So again, we read the X Hex, 3 stars, The Witch Haven, 3 stars, and The Nature of Witches, which was 5 stars. I'm so glad we ended on a 5-star book. Thank goodness. And I'm so glad Pris hosted this readathon. I love witchy books, so this was a perfect time to pull out some of the ones I hadn't gotten to yet and read those this week. Thank you so much for watching this vlog and subscribing. If you haven't already, please like and comment, and feel free to comment any witchy books you would like to recommend to me, and maybe I will do a video soon on your recommendations. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.